Okay, so let's talk Cinemacon 2025. It is in full effect, and this whole week we're probably going to be dropping some random videos throughout the day like this because the studios have a very different schedule when they're releasing. Sony just went up first, and they undoubtedly have released a lot of crazy stuff from the new Spider-Man films. Also, I Know What You Did Last Summer, but here we're going to talk about 28 Years Later, which is a movie we've been talking about ever since it got announced. 28 Years Later is directed by Danny Boyle, and you also have Alex Garland writing in this, Jodie Comer, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Ralph Fiennes are starring, and the premise reads, 28 years after the rage virus escaped a medical research laboratory, survivors have found ways to exist amidst the infected. One group lives on a small island connected to the mainland by a single, heavily defended causeway. When a father and his son leave the island on a mission into the dark heart of the mainland, they discover secrets, wonders, and horrors to the outside world. We got a trailer a couple of months ago. We've discussed it, we've done theories, and now we have a new trailer. Now, it hasn't arrived online just yet. Once it does, we will definitely be talking about it. But Danny Boyle went on the stage for the Sony presentation and he showcased the latest trailer. He actually joked as well that he hasn't learned much since making the original 28 Days Later. Let's see what that means. But it's been 2002. That was the last time we got one from Danny Boyle. So he says, I still love an apocalypse, British style. I still love the infected and I still love blowing shit up is what he teased. He also said for people to be patient. Cillian Murphy will in fact be in the new planned trilogy, but he says, like all good things in life, you may have to wait a little for him to make his appearance. So he also had Nia DaCosta, who is directing the sequel for the 28 Years Later films, which is The Bone Temple. So DaCosta went on to say, while it's very much informed by 28 Days Later, the script for The Bone Temple is very different. She told this to the crowd and also says, I was able to let my freak flag fly. So, Boyle also shared that they haven't finalized financing for the third film in the franchise and encourages people to support the first two movies if they want to see the complete trilogy come to life. So, The Bone Temple should be arriving in theaters like less than a year from the 28 Years Later film on January 16, 2026. And Boyle has also shared that he will be directing the third film in the trilogy if in fact it does get financed. So, what we know now, let's go into the teaser description of what we have. And the trailer description is coming to us from Discussing Film. So it says, a new trailer for 28 Years Later debuted at this year's Cinemacon. It has a lot of similarities to the first trailer, including a song motif and general cryptic tone. It opens on soldiers walking down a dark bunker, the frame only illuminated by their flashlights. They are attacked by the infected before the studio logo kicks in. We are shown more of the film's setting, a small English town surrounded by a large barrier and bridge to the mainland, adorned by skulls and graves. We are shown the settlements and the groups of survivors who have grown accustomed to the pandemic life. Conflicts arise as Aaron Taylor-Johnson's son turns of age and must be taught to protect the town's barriers. Next, we see him being trained to use a crossbow on the infected deep in the woods. As the rhythm of the trailer intensifies, images of infected taking down military, survivors running down forests, and an old infected talking as the infected attack civilians. So there's a lot going on here. First and foremost, an old infected talking about Judgment Day. I'm very curious about that because we talked about in the first trailer how some of the infected that were showcased in that trailer seem to be a bit more sentient and almost like they are hoarding the other ones and leading them, like herding. I mean, not hoarding. Well, maybe they are hoarding some of the infected to use them as their own little army if they're a little bit more sentient, right? And then they're herding them towards the survivors in an effort to bring like a revolution of sorts. I think that's something we could see that would be interesting as well in this one here. Now, some of the things that I learned from going on IMDb and also on Wikipedia is we have a bit more about the characters, and Jodie Comer is playing Isla, a pregnant woman who lives with her husband and son in a community on the tidal island of Lindisfarne. And we see that Aaron Taylor-Johnson is playing Jamie, who is a scavenger and also Isla's husband. And Ralph Fiennes is playing Dr. Kelson, a survivor of the outbreak. And we heard from Ralph a couple of months ago that he is very important because he may be able to find a cure to everything that's going on, according to his whole, like, when he was describing the movie. And we'll get back to Ralph's character in a bit because Nia DaCosta did share an image of him in the Bone Temple. But what's so interesting is that Jack O'Connell is in this movie playing a character called Sir Jimmy Crystal, a leader of the cult who has a dark past. This is what it says on Wikipedia. I don't know if this is true or not, but we're just reading what it says, right? And this is something that's interesting to me because for a long time we were wondering who Jimmy was. Now we know who Sir Jimmy is. But another interesting aspect is when you go on IMDb, you see that Aaron Kellyman is playing a character called Jimmy Inc., but it also does say about Jack O'Connell playing Sir Jimmy Crystal. So it asks us, who is the Jimmy that everybody fears? Of course, I feel like Jack O'Connell might be that, and maybe Jimmy Inc., played by Aaron Kellyman, might be his daughter or whatever, child, and that could definitely be an interesting aspect here about this cult here, which we've already discussed before. As you can see from the pictures here, this cult seems to be very ruthless. They make a name for themselves. They leave their mark wherever they go, and I think it's going to be one of the main antagonists as we go further into it. And the Bone Temple, of course, does make an appearance towards the end of the trailer as well, which I found pretty fascinating as well when I first watched it. Now, the glimpse of Ralph Fiennes is interesting as well because we see him there and he is warning there as well that there are many kinds of death and some are better than others to the people in the trailer. So I think that that is going to be something we see, that Ralph is a little bit of a character that is sort of trying to find a better way, a better life. Now, in the Bone Temple image that they showcase from Nia DaCosta, Fiennes is there looking deranged according to the rap. Apparently surrounded by fire and brandishing weapons while wearing black paint over his eyes. They say, imagine the war boys from Mad Max Fury Road and you'll get an idea of how twisted the Conclave star will look in the upcoming film. So very, very excited for this. And like Boyle said, if we want to see that third one, we better make sure we go watch these in theaters. But I'm super excited for this. The original trailer, of course, showcases that Aaron Taylor Johnson is playing, of course, Jamie, who will be going out with his son Spike, who is played by Alfie Williams, and they are definitely going to get into some shit. Now, I think that what we also hear about from Ralph Fiennes earlier on in the year last year was that his character was very crucial to Jamie and his family, and maybe Jamie's wife Isla gets infected because that's something that he sort of brushed up upon during an interview, he said. So this is what he said beforehand when he was talking about a couple of months ago, about 20 years later, wrapping up filming for both films. He said, Britain is 28 years into this terrible plague of infected people who are violent, rabid humans with a few pockets of uninfected communities. It centers on a young boy who wants to find a doctor to help his dying mother. He leads his mother through this beautiful northern English terrain, but of course around them, hiding in forests and hills and woods, are infected. But he finds a doctor who is a man we might think is going to be weird and odd, but is actually a force for good. And that's exactly what he said when he was talking about the film 28 years later to IndieWire, which we'll provide as well if you want to go read that. So it seems that Ralph is definitely playing this doctor, and it seems that at some point we will see that Jamie's wife becomes ill, becomes infected or whatever, and they're trying to find a way to help her. And of course, I think that's going to lead them to the Bone Temple, but that's for a whole theory video we have coming up for you in the next couple of days. If we do get, in fact, a trailer, I do want to wait for images and to really watch the trailer myself and check out what we can. This is just a trailer description and some new information we found about 20 years later. We're a couple of months away from it, and I cannot wait. We'll definitely be discussing it more as we get more information, so stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button and notification bell. We're on the road to 40,000 subscribers. Let's get to it. About 2,000 subscribers to go for that, and I'll see all of you next time. Let me know what you think about 20 years later, and if you're excited for the movie or not, and what do you think about the new trailer description as well. Comment below. As always, stay safe, stay positive, and stay tuned for more Cinemacon announcements.